Thanks for joining us here today. As you can see in the chat, we have plenty of people from all over the country. So we're excited to engage in this conversation. Thanks for spending the next hour here with us today. All right, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. So this webinar is being recorded. We want to have other folks use it or see it who couldn't attend today. So it's being recorded. The chat, I hope you can keep alive. Please ask your questions throughout the session in the chat. I will be monitoring those questions as we engage with our panelists. And also keep an eye on the chat. We're gonna try to put in some information in the chat, relevant links as they become, as we have the conversation today. And we will also put a link to the deck, a PDF link to the deck of today's webinar in the chat. So just keep an eye on the chat and we are going to get started. All right, so some quick introductions from myself. Now that we've gotten housekeeping out of the way, I wanted to briefly introduce myself and preview for you the great voices you're about to hear from today. My name is Karla Robles, and I get the honor of being OneGoal's Chief Program Officer and your host for what I'm sure will be a powerful conversation with OneGoal alumni. We're really excited to have you all here. As a first-generation college graduate myself, I know firsthand the power and impact of a degree. Not only have I been afforded opportunities that I could have never imagined growing up in Tucson, Arizona, if we have any Arizona folks here, as a first-generation college graduate immigrant myself, but I've been able to be blessed and help make that a reality for thousands of students across this country through the work that I've done in post-secondary access and success. So I'm really excited to be here, deeply connected to the mission of OneGoal and the conversation we're having here today. But the stars of today's show here, the stars of today's webinar will be our OneGoal alumni that you'll get a chance to meet in a few minutes. As you'll see here, you are in for quite the treat. They'll each share more about themselves and their journey to a degree in just a little bit. Robert, Jaydisha, Jawon, and Ellie, we can't wait for you to join us on this virtual stage. But before we get started, I wanted to share just a brief overview of OneGoal, who we are, so that you're able to relate this back to our OneGoal alumni panelists here today and their stories. At OneGoal, our vision is that every young person will have an equitable opportunity to achieve their greatest post-secondary potential. It's easy. We want this for all students. Our mission is simple. We want to close the degree divide in America. And in this next slide here, you can see why we're steadfast in our commitment to achieve this mission when we remember that this is just an unjust reality. Students from low-income communities are 3 times, yes, 3 times less likely to earn a post-secondary degree than their more affluent peers. The degree divide has remained largely unchanged, and in today's post-COVID, and I would fair to say not quite post-COVID just yet, world, the stakes couldn't be higher. Despite decades of work and millions of dollars invested, the degree divide continues to be one of our nation's most complex and critical injustices, with deep roots in systems of oppression and racism. As a result, too many students across this wonderful country, the vast majority of whom are students of color, are left to confront economic, academic, and social barriers that make it almost impossible to achieve their greatest post-secondary aspirations. And as we go on to this next slide here, you'll see the approach that OneGoal is taking to address this injustice. It's simple. We make sure that students have the one-on-one support they need, and we build the capacity for adults to also support this work. We offer a set of services aligned with a core belief that in order to meaningfully change post-secondary outcomes for students, we all need to be engaged. Through our post-secondary leadership series, we are building the capacity of adults in the system beyond teachers and counselors. And second, through our classroom-based model, we deliver content and curriculum directly to students, just like a math class and English class that our students are engaging in. We are teaching students how to do post-secondary planning, and we believe that it must be explicitly taught to them and teachers and staff so that we are able to coach our students effectively to deliver this knowledge. Now, where does this work take place? So this work is taking place across the country, very similar to our audience here today. We are spanning coast to coast, now spanning 6 different regions and 3 district partnership program sites. OneGoal is supporting fellows, over 13,000 fellows across this wonderful country. You'll see here that the impact that we've had thus far. Now we all know that we'll be able to hear a variety of different impact stories here today. So you'll be able to see like the realities of these numbers in a bit. But before we get started, we felt it was important to highlight that we are intentional about the students that we help support. Our fellows, as we call them, are bright and motivated individuals who are often faced with limited post-secondary opportunities, given a variety of academic and socioeconomic barriers. And in spite of that, they are succeeding at rates comparable with high-performing charter networks across this country. 85% of OneGoal high school graduates enroll in a post-secondary institution, and 75% of those who enroll persist 1 year after high school graduation. Before we get started with hearing from 4 of our alumni, we have another poll to get us thinking of just one of the variety of ways in which we can measure the impact of a degree. If we can launch that poll, please. We'll ask you to please answer this poll question as we engage in this conversation with our alumni. Oh, and it sounds like we don't have a poll. Never mind. We were going to have a poll. Apologies for that. All right, we're grounding our conversation on the impact of a degree. We are now, that means we get to start with the stars of the show, and the moment that everyone's been waiting for. So please help me welcome our amazing alumni to the virtual stage. We will start with brief introductions. Yes, Robert, thanks. Let's clap for these alumni. We will start with brief introductions. Alumni, we'll start with Robert. If you can share kind of your current job, where you live, and maybe one of the many OneGoal high school memories that you have. And then we'll go on to Jadisha, Jawon, and Ellie.
Awesome. Thanks so much for welcoming us, Karla, and the OneGoal family. It's an honor and pleasure to be here with each and every one of you. My name is Robert Emmons Jr. I'm the Director of Employer Engagement at National Louis University, which a lot of our OneGoal students currently attend. I'm also a former employee of OneGoal. I used to consult with OneGoal, and I now sit on the board of OneGoal. So OneGoal is all around me, which is an honor in and of itself. In terms of high school memories, I forgot to mention one thing. I'm a Chicago Southsider for all of those in Chicago, but originally from a small town named Maysland in New Jersey. I saw New Jersey in there. I think it was Laurel is from New Jersey as well. So we got some New Jersey and Chicago representation in the house. Now, in terms of high school memories of OneGoal, as a former fellow of OneGoal, honestly, I can't pick just one, so I'll instead focus on the memories I'm currently making. My cohort, back then it was 12 of us. We remained incredibly close to one another. We've lost 2 of them due to tragedy, but the ones that are still here on this earth, we're still very close, still best friends. We just celebrated about a month and a half ago one of our best friends' weddings, and a lot of us OneGoal students were there celebrating with him. So to me, post-secondary success isn't just about graduating from college or getting a certificate. It's about, actually getting a chance to live a fulfilling life and to ascertain all the things that come with that. So I guess I'm still making those OneGoal memories from high school. So thank you all.
Thanks, Robert. Jadisha, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Jadisha. I'm from Chicago as well, and I currently work at this place called the Women's Center. And basically, the Women's Center, we just help survivors of domestic violence and of sexual assault. And I am a rape crisis counselor here. And I'm also getting my master's degree right now. I'm getting a master's of science in counseling and rehabilitation education. And a memory from high school. What I remember the most about OneGoal from high school is just having someone to guide me through the college process and someone who I could ask for answers to the questions that I had, just a helping hand.
Thank you for sharing. Jawon, you want to introduce yourself?
What is happening, everybody? I'm Jawon. Let's see, I'm a current cloud platform engineer at Allstate. Shout out to my Allstaters on the call here. From Chicago, born and raised, actually moved to Charlotte, North Carolina in March of 2020. So headed back to Chicago from Charlotte, spent a couple years there to launch a small business company I own. And what else? From high school, I would have to say my top takeaway was, well, from OneGoal, one of the co-founders of OneGoal is actually a co-founder of my high school. So ironically, the curriculum was heavily kind of, baked into my high school curriculum. So that was just really cool to have such a close, higher level connection locally.
Love it. Thank you. Such great memories. All right. Now that you got to hear a little bit about our alumni here today, we are missing one alumni, and we'll introduce her as soon as she jumps on. Oh, there she is. She's on. Hi. Just in time, sorry, Ellie. No worries. Just in time. Thank you for joining us. We are just doing introductions right now. So if you can just do a quick introduction, where you're currently working, where you currently live, and then one of your many OneGoal high school memories.
Okay. I am currently working at the Montrose Center. It's a counseling center that primarily serves the LGBTQ community. I'm the eligibility associate, so I usually take in people who come in as walk-ins, and I help them fill out eligibility applications and kind of walk them through that process. And right now I live in Katy, but hopefully soon I'll be moving closer over here to Montrose. And one of my memories from the OneGoal program is we did take a trip one time where it kind of had we got to meet other people from the programs that were from different schools, and we kind of got to meet new people and kind of meet other people who were a part of the program or who work in the program to kind of give us new ideas of different careers that we can look into. And that was pretty fun.
Thank you, Ellie. I can imagine. Yes. So OneGoal does become a big network, if you haven't already noticed from some of the memories, folks. Okay, we are going to get started with a series of questions that we prepared, but I will also be watching the chat. So please make sure to put your questions in the chat for our audience, for our panelists here today, and I will bake those into our conversation. I'm going to start with Jadisha. Could you tell us, how did you choose what you wanted to do after high school, and what helped you make the decision you did for your education?
Okay. So growing up, I just experienced a lot of things in my childhood, and I always wanted to understand it better, or understand what was going on with everybody better. So for my undergraduate degree, I got my bachelor's in psychology, and I knew that I wanted to help people and assist them any way that I could. And I always was when I was younger, I would always be trying to help people with their problems. So yeah, I just know I wanted to be a counselor since I was younger, just from things I experienced and a need to help people.
Thank you. And so that those needs on how to help people definitely start informing your pathway. Jawon, can you help us? Can you share with us, how did you determine what was the right pathway for you after high school?
Yeah, similar to Jadisha, growing up, I was interested in technology more than the average, kind of kid around. Everybody seemed to be playing sports or just kind of active. I was the guy to just kind of go home and open up, the toolbox, right, and try to understand the processes. That definitely heavily influenced, but during high school, honestly, is when I started to reach out to my PD and just ask for the feedback. Is this something that you see that I'm good at? The high school saw that I was good at certain things as it related to technology, gave me an internship, and that just kind of paved the way for my tech.
Awesome. And I got a question in the chat. from a couple of folks, if you can all share where do you went to school right after high school, Jawon? I know everybody went to different places.
Yeah, Southern Illinois University, Carbondale, Salukis, actually with Jadisha.
All right, I think you just answered it for Jadisha. Robert, similar questions for you. Can you tell us kind of what your pathway would look like after high school? And then how did you know that was the right pathway for you?
Absolutely. So I went to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, downstate Illinois. I didn't quite know where I was headed as early as my childhood. It wasn't until I moved from Maysland in New Jersey to Chicago that I started to realize some of my purpose. So I grew up somewhat poor in Maysland in New Jersey. However, gun violence wasn't an epidemic in New Jersey. It wasn't until I moved to Chicago where I saw just how real the problem was. Every couple of months, we'd go down to our auditorium, and our dean was telling us that past weekend, we had just lost a friend, a classmate, to gun violence. So it was in those moments where I realized that I wanted to be a part of the solution. So when came time to picking my degree, I wanted to find a degree that would help me get to a pathway towards being able to make scalable, sustainable change. So I chose political science in Urbana-Champaign because I knew I wanted to go into politics, again, to really get at some of those systemic reasons to why gun violence is such an epidemic. And I'm so glad that I chose that. But I'd also like to say that I'm still choosing my post-secondary pathway. I just applied for college at Kendall College, which is a culinary school in Chicago, because I realized my passion for cooking and baking. So anybody out there that's still in college or thinking about going back to school, you don't ever have to choose one particular path. You can be your full self always, and that's what I'm choosing.
Thank you, Robert. And last but definitely not least, Ellie, can you share with all of us today, what was your pathway after high school, and how did you choose what you did?
I decided to, I changed my mind a few times. In high school, I definitely wanted to do something with art. So whenever I graduated, I went to Lone Star, which is a community college, and I was trying to major in art and business. I was studying business management, but I wasn't entirely a huge fan of it, and I actually started getting more into psychology. And so for my bachelor's, I've been studying psychology to become a licensed therapist, and I also want to teach psychology at a college or a university as well. But I haven't let go of art either. I have been kind of turning it into a side business as well, to sell my art on the side. So I definitely, yes, I agree with Robert that you definitely don't have to choose one path.
Absolutely not. Thank you for sharing. And I might be interested in buying some of your art. So let us know. Yes, Robert, drop the link. So as you all heard, our alumni are taking very different paths all the time in terms of their post-secondary careers. Jawon, can you share with us kind of what was your pathway like, and how has obtaining a degree impacted your life?
Yeah, the pathway was, even though I knew I wanted to focus on technology, that is very robust, right? Where do I go in the world of technology? Technology is literally baked into each and every one of our careers. So it was a lot. It was not often easy to focus. So just kind of trying different areas, talking to different professionals really helped me ground myself. And ultimately figure out where that path is headed. But to answer your question, it was uncomfortable, and it's not really until you find joy in what you're doing that really helps you hone in on this being the correct pathway for you. So you'll feel it.
Thank you, Jawon. Yes, I mean, feelings of not feeling comfortable is definitely something I can relate to in my own pathway. Jadisha, is there anything that you can relate to in terms of what Jawon just shared about your own pathway and what it was like, and how it's impacted your life now that you've gotten a degree?
Yeah, so I can definitely relate to him. It has been very uncomfortable, honestly, still is, since I'm still in school. It just was a big adjustment for me. In high school, I feel like the expectations just wasn't as high, and I went to Inglewood, so it wasn't like, it was very underprivileged and they didn't really have all the resources. So coming to college, I just was like shocked. I wasn't expecting it to be that way. So I just had to do a lot of adjusting and deal with a lot of imposter syndrome, feeling like, oh, I belong here, I can do this. And even though I've always known I've wanted to be a counselor since a young age, once I actually got into the classes, feeling like, oh, this is something that I actually can do. So yeah, a lot of getting uncomfortable, getting back comfortable.
What else can you do, right? You got to plug through it. Totally can relate. To that point, Robert, can you share a little bit with us, anything that you can relate in terms of, like Jadisha talked about, the imposter syndrome, often something that's tagged, especially for first generation college graduates. Anything that you can relate to there, or any of your colleagues that you maybe went to high school with that were part of the OneGoal program, and how that played out in your post-secondary pathway?
Absolutely. Yeah, what Jadisha said resonates tremendously. The vast majority of my college experience was comfortable. It wasn't until was supposedly my final year of college that things get uncomfortable. I had gotten sick, hospitalized, and then towards the end of the school year, I lost a best friend, OneGoal alum, college roommate, to gun violence. And it led me to withdrawing from the university that year. And I bounced around to different jobs from job to job. And I honestly felt like an imposter because at the time, I had deemed myself a gun violence prevention activist, yet I couldn't do anything or didn't do anything to help save my friend's life. So I felt like an imposter. And that ultimately led me to reject the notion that I should continue college and continue down that pathway. But I had to really reach deep into my foundations, which was my community, my high school, my God, and remember some of those lessons about courage, and how courage isn't the absence of fear, is the overcoming of it. So that's what led me to go back to the University of Illinois and graduate. Took me 5 years, but I finished up. And that had a lot to do with some of that imposter syndrome in a different way that I experienced. But ultimately, it impacted my life because now I can go back to those moments from college, and whenever I'm experiencing a rough season, I know that it's going to end as long as I keep pushing. So thank you, Jadisha and Jawon, for sharing that.
Yes, thank you all for sharing that. And thank you for sharing that, Robert. I get it. It took me 6 years to finish my undergrad. Definitely a lot of roadblocks there, but you make it through, you plug through. Ellie, can you share a little bit more about what your pathway's been like? What have been some of those moments that have come up for you as barriers that you've been able to overcome?
I definitely feel like at some points, I did feel kind of lost. I did not know how to kind of proceed with the whole thing, especially whenever it came to changing my majors. It kind of feels like usually you have this idea of like everyone choosing one path and kind of like sticking with it. You don't hear a lot of like people kind of like switching around and trying out new things. But it definitely helped to have my PD there to kind of guide me through the whole thing and to kind of help me figure out which direction I wanted to take everything into, especially because I feel like I had a lot of people in my family look up to me in my education, especially because in my family, I've been the only one who's continued with my education. And my siblings as well have been wanting to go back. So it's kind of like we're all trying to like move forward together.
Thank you for sharing. Yes. And OneGoal impacts not only the student that goes through OneGoal, but as you're highlighting here, it also impacts family members, right? And so I'm sure you've shared a lot of your lessons from your OneGoal experience with your siblings and family. You talked about the PD. The PD is OneGoal's program director, and it's the person that's in the high school facilitating our student-facing high school program. that supports students from their Y1, so their junior year, senior year, and their first year into post-secondary. Jawon, do you have anything you want to share about like what was your experience with your PD and how might that PD have helped you persist into what now has been a career for you?
Yeah, my PD was actually, oh my God, my PD was like as close as family as you could possibly get without being family. So highly suggest, if there are fellows out there that have not built that rapport with their PD, go for it, right? So my PD just was the backbone, just the positive genie and in both of my shoulders, like, yo, you got this. Apply for those 12 schools, even if you only get in the 6, right? The extra push that, just coming first generation, we don't get, out of the box. That was the baked in motivation for me. And like I said, the rapport was there. So the closer we got, kind of together, the more I knew her, she knew me, and just kind of was able to better help guide.
I love how excited you got when we brought up the notion of a PD. I love it. And that's what we want. It's all about building those one-on-one relationships. And that is at the core of the OneGoal model, is having those positive relationships for fellows, not only in high school, but as they transition into post-secondary. Jadisha, anything you want to share about your PD experience and how that might have supported you with your not only enrollment, but persistence in your pathway?
So honestly, I can't say that I really have a close relationship with my PD. I did stay in communication with her through my freshman year of college, but after that, the communication fell off, if I'm honest.
Honesty is key. Honesty. What do you think would have been helpful for you to have in terms of a close relationship with somebody to help you through this transition? So as we have a lot of school folks on the call today. We have principals, directors, school leaders, university leaders. What kind of advice would you have for them in terms of supporting fellows that you think you would have needed as you transitioned into your post-secondary pathway?
So what I felt like I needed was encouragement. Somebody letting me know that I can do this and I can compete at this level. Just someone checking in to see if I needed anything or if I needed help with anything. List of resources if there were any, just support.
You are naming all of the things that we are still building out at OneGoal today and want to make sure that fellows have well after they leave our high school program. And so more to come on that, but OneGoal is building a lot of that infrastructure to make sure fellows and students and alumni have those resources to come back to well after they leave high school. And so thank you for sharing that with us. I had a question in the chat around, it's clear that OneGoal has done a great job in helping you all and fellows across this country enroll in a post-secondary institution or program. But the question from the panel or from the audience is they're curious about whether or not you were able to utilize career services at your college or university as you were going through your post-secondary pathway. And if so, what was that like? And I will send that over to Robert first.
Absolutely. I did. I took full advantage of our career center. At the time, I also considered myself pre-law, took advantage of our counseling center for pre-law. And in terms of the experience, it was similar to my experience in high school, surrounded by people who truly cared and had a commitment to your success, making sure that you followed your dreams, followed your goals, because ultimately that's what life is about. So I had an amazing experience at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And a lot of, me taking initiative to reach out to my college career center came from my experience with OneGoal. OneGoal teaches about self-agency and self-efficacy and really making sure you dive deep and take advantage of all the resources at your disposal. So I learned a lot in high school, and it translated well into college. I really appreciate that.
If I could jump in there next, it's yes, definitely use it, but it was more about the, the approach. So how to use the career services center at your university. OneGoal definitely helped with how to use it versus, you not only knowing it's there, but what are the questions that you should be asking that'll get you, kind of up that list of 2,000 students, into the next opportunity. So that was definitely a leg up.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's not just enough that it's there. It's like, how do you leverage these resources? Like, how are they supposed to support you? And so I know that that's core to like our curriculum that we have for our high school students. So thank you for sharing that. Ellie, can you share a little bit more about kind of like what kind of support have you had in terms of figuring out your career pathway?
What helped me out a lot actually was I went to go see my counselor at my university. This was whenever I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do and if I wanted to change my career path. I went to go see my counselor and we kind of did like a questionnaire together. That way, what kind of career path would best suit me based on my likes and my personality type. I think that was a great thing to do with her, especially because kind of made me learn more about myself as well and also kind of helped me choose that career path. And that definitely helped me out.
Thank you. All right, we're going to transition gears a little bit. So we're obviously having you all here because you have like what we define as persisted and completed, and you are now reaping the benefits of a lot of what the decisions you made both in high school and post-high school in terms of your post-secondary education. But you all know people, I'm sure, and you can probably count them all on multiple hands that didn't necessarily follow the pathway that you've been able to follow. Robert, can we start with you? Can you share a little bit more about what might have you overcome that has prevented some of your friends from high school from doing the same? And that could serve as an advice for folks on the call today as we're thinking about how do we better support students on their path to a post-secondary journey?
I'm so sorry, Karla. Can you rephrase that question?
I will. What I was saying is that you've all been chosen to be on this webinar here today because you have, to some extent, like succeeded and you've persisted and you've completed in your post-secondary journeys. But you all know folks and you have friends and colleagues that maybe didn't have that same story that you might have gone to high school with. And so do you have any insight or advice for folks on the call today in terms of what helped you overcome that they might be able to do for students in classrooms today that are needing that extra support?
Yeah, that is a great question. Thank you for rephrasing it also, Karla. I think for me, one thing that kept me moving and continuing and ultimately persisting through college was my cohort, my cohort of support. So yes, I had phenomenal PDs, and that extended to PDs of other schools through just my work in college. However, my cohort here in Chicago, they were there when we lost friends to gun violence and to diabetes. They were there at my wedding, and I was there at their weddings, and they've been with me in life. So I give all credit to them. And even within that cohort, the ones that have passed away due to gun violence or health issues, the reason for them not persisting wasn't by their anything they did incorrectly necessarily. It's because of systemic barriers that led to what their ultimate tragedy. So the advice I would give to everybody on this call and to folks around the country is we really do need to focus on breaking down those systemic barriers that lead to this sense of exceptionalism within post-secondary pathways. A lot of folks think my story is exceptional, which it is through the grace of God and my community, but it shouldn't be the exception. In order to make sure that that's true, we have to break down those barriers so that everyone can be successful. And we don't have to just rely on pure resiliency of individuals that aren't even 25 yet. So that's the advice I'd give each and every person on this call. So let's work together to break down those systemic barriers that lead to just students not being able to persist. I hope I answered your question, Karla.
You did, and you answered it in the most meta and most important way. It's like, let's get to the root cause of like what's preventing students from really achieving. And so thank you for highlighting that and the importance of like really addressing kind of like the systemic barriers that are preventing a lot of our students across this country from going down this pathway of post-secondary success that you all have. And I agree. I often say that my story is unique for all the wrong reasons. Because I got lucky. I had folks come through my path to help push me and support me. I had a mother who was steadfast in figuring out how to get me to college. And so we can't rely on being lucky for students across this country. So thank you for sharing that. Jawon, can you share a little bit about what has been the pathway for some of your colleagues that didn't necessarily go the route you did in terms of a post-secondary pathway? And what do you think would have been able to support them in making different choices?
Yeah, it's funny because most of those colleagues, most of those peers were not a part of such an organization like OneGoal, or even, a high school that's run by a OneGoal founder, essentially, right? So the baked in curriculum really kind of goes far beyond the persistence. It's really kind of reflecting and living back into the reason you were able to get from A to B, from B to C. So as I move forward within my career, within my education, I challenge those who are behind me, not to, hey, look at me, I'm here, but what is it that got me here, and sharing that with them because they didn't have the exposure that I had to get me there. So really understanding where you come from, and don't forget the small praises. Even though college graduation may or may not be someone's end goal, you got accepted. So what is it that got you accepted? You got on campus. What is it that got you there? Praising the small wins before, the home run.
I agree. Thank you. I think something that I haven't highlighted is that our curriculum, and you'll see plenty of links in the chat that my colleagues have posted. Our curriculum is very much grounded in like identity affirming practices for fellows across this country. It's about really digging into reflecting on who the fellow is, where you want to be, how your family contributes to that, how your community does. So I appreciate you sharing that, Jawon. Ellie, can you share a little bit about how your post-secondary experience, so like how college, your post-secondary college experience has supported you now in your career pathway?
I think I have built a lot of new connections, definitely through my school and my career change. I think having those different connections definitely opened new opportunities for me as to where places that I could apply to for jobs and new learning experiences, especially. The difference in whenever I changed career paths, it allowed me to experience new things, to kind of grow and to learn from them. And it kind of let me apply that as I was changing career paths and kind of adjusting to them as well. And that support that I had from those connections that I've made has helped me a lot, tremendously, to adjust to these changes and to keep going and to continue with my education.
Thank you. So I'm noticing a theme here, right? So something around like this network of supporters and like this connection to other folks that are helping you on these pathways, uber important. And so thank you for sharing that. Again, a lot of like reaffirming why we do the work that we do. Jadisha, can you share a little bit about how your post-secondary experience has set you up now for your career?
So I feel like I got a lot of hands-on experience while I was in school. I got to actually counsel people in real time and figure out what I can be better at and what I was doing good at. And that has really, really helped me because I'm like more of a hands-on learner. So just getting able to actually have experience while being at school as a requirement has really helped me to succeed.
Life experience, got it. I love it. Yes, real life experience. A career exploration in high school could be a way to translate that. All right, so you all have shared wonderful points in terms of like your post-secondary pathways. Back to the title of today's webinar, the impact of a degree. Career aside, because we all know that you are all doing great things in terms of your career, how has pursuing a post-secondary pathway and earning a degree or credential impacted your life personally? And I'll start with Robert.
I think I'd be remiss without mentioning that I found my wife in college. So that definitely wouldn't have happened. And now we have a 1-year-old. We have a 1-year-old now who's upstairs sleeping right now. But honestly, that would not have happened had I not gone to college. And it also wouldn't have happened, strangely enough, had I not gone through so many obstacles in college, because we both found each other at relatively dark moments in our lives. And in that darkness, we found some light. That's what I've experienced all throughout college, to be completely honest. So yeah, college was a blessing. And I'm a firm believer that when you lead and allow your heart to guide you, you attract that same light, you attract that same goodness and positivity. So wouldn't have done that, wouldn't have gotten this opportunity, wouldn't have this life that I have without having gone through a post-secondary pathway like college. So incredibly fortunate.
That is a great reason. Meeting your life partner and having your baby came out of all that. So I love it. Thanks for sharing. Ellie, can you share outside of career how receiving a degree has impacted your life personally?
I'm actually going to go back to the same thing that Robert did. I think that I've definitely met a lot of new people that I was able to relate to, who I can connect with, who can help me during these tough times, because we're all kind of going through some similar struggles, whether that would be financially, whether you're learning different new things and you're trying to figure out what you want to do. I think having others with you, especially the ones that can understand what you're going through, definitely helps you out a lot, and you can learn from one another, and that actually helps out too.
I can't agree more. I have my closest friends are folks that I met in college. We've now been friends 20 plus years. And had I not met these people, we've gone through life moments together. We've gone through career changes. They've read my resume a million times. So you definitely build that network. And I think that's often what we don't talk about when we talk about having students go on to a post-secondary career. It's all of the personal impact that doing so will have on them in their lives. So thank you for sharing. I will ask the same question of Jawon and Jadisha, and then we'll start with a different kind of train of thought.
Yeah, I can take it. I'll do it in twofold. So first, the going to college, right? Going away was definitely, that was the one. The network building 100% was my takeaway. That far outweighs my degree, in my opinion, because I think it depends on kind of what you choose to study. Me as an engineer, as the tech background, the experience was a little bit more important than the actual credential. But, meeting the people I met while away at school, it goes without saying that is probably 100% of the reason I chose to start the small business, is because of the network that I had built in Southern Illinois. Coming back with a credential just kind of got me in the door to anywhere, I wanted to go on top of my experience. So I think definitely lean heavy on, the experience as a whole, the network you'll build, and then think about the credential you'll come out with.
As an added bonus, right?
Yeah.
A big added bonus at that, but an added
big
bonus.
one.
Yeah. Jadisha, would you like to share anything around how having a degree has impacted your life personally?
Mm-hmm. So I am a very, very introverted person. And in order to get this degree, I had to step out of my comfort zone a little bit, had to learn to ask for help when I needed it, had to learn to seek out resources. And I faced so many obstacles with getting my degrees, and it just helped me see how resilient I am and how like I can do it. So it's helped me build confidence within myself and my capabilities.
Love it. Thank you for sharing, because you're right. Like pursuing a post-secondary education, obtaining a degree or credential isn't always just about that job at the end of the rainbow there, but there's so much more that comes with it. And oftentimes we don't highlight that, right? We don't highlight the networks that you'll build, the relationships that you'll build, the confidence that you'll build. And so thank you for underscoring that for our audience here today. I have a couple of questions from the audience. One of them, I'll pass it on to Robert. What's the most impactful or best thing about your experience with OneGoal? And we'll go to your high school experience, because I know you've had a lot of different experiences.
The most impactful thing about OneGoal in high school, I'll go right back to cohort. I'm sorry, well, I'm not actually sorry, but I'll keep going back to the one thing that I appreciated within my respective cohort. They continue to be some of my best friends in life. They continue to be some of my strongest supporters. So it's really just after school, meeting with our cohort, joking around, talking about life, talking about our futures. That was honestly the most impactful thing about OneGoal, is just bringing us together with a common goal. I think Jadisha mentioned it, just like, and Jadisha mentioned it's just important to convene in that way, and yeah, it's so impactful. Community.
Love it. Jadisha, what was the most impactful part of your OneGoal experience?
I would say just having somebody that believed in me and who felt like I could go to college and that I could succeed in college. Because prior to being in OneGoal, I didn't know much about college. I didn't have any resources. So yeah, just whenever I'm feeling like really down or something, I can think back to like, okay, like somebody believed in you, you can do this.
Thank you. And you mentioned that prior to OneGoal, you were thinking a certain way. And so I'm going to tie this into another question from the chat, and I'll send this over to Jawon. The question is, curious to learn if you can reflect on what you were expecting your post-high school life would look like before engaging with OneGoal. How much of your vision changed? And what were you expecting before OneGoal that later after OneGoal completely changed?
Yeah, I remember getting tapped in high school for the cohort just building, I guess. When Y1 gets pulled out of the general population, that was an interesting one. I had no idea what to expect. And then my PD just calmed my nerves, was like, you'll enjoy this, right? And I reflected on that every year moving forward, and really just kind of reaping the benefits of being pulled out of the general population. So hopefully that answers your question. I forgot the second piece of it.
I'm going to probe a little bit more. So what did Jawon freshman year think about life after high school versus Jawon senior year?
We're talking college?
High school.
Okay. Freshman year, I was a knucklehead, to be honest. I have no idea. I did not know. I knew I was good with my hands. I was, kind of born and raised in a church setting. Play drums and behind the audio engineering. So I'm like something music, right? But had no idea that the technology would span, especially in, my cloud venture, far out. So the end of high school, after taking, the dual enrollment courses, focusing on technology, I'm like, okay, I could really see this is going to scale far beyond what I could even imagine. So I think the end of high school was actually halftime. For my vision.
Love it. Nothing's complete. Ellie, quick question, the same question for you. What did the Ellie of freshman year think her life after high school was going to be like? And did that change after your OneGoal experience? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry.
Okay.
I definitely had kind of like I had imagined kind of like a straight line of how I'm going to get there and what I'm going to do to get to my career of choice at that time. And I have to say, it is nothing like I imagined it. I thought it would be kind of like I would just go to school, I'd graduate by a certain time, get everything done, and I'd find my dream job. But it has not been like that, actually, which I do not complain about. It has been an enjoyable experience. I have, especially with everything I've experienced and everything that I've learned along the way, I think not having that kind of straight path definitely helps you grow, and it benefits you in the best possible way, whether that be in your private life or in your education and career. And I think that's something that I'm actually grateful for, that it didn't go the way that I had imagined. And one thing that I did that did help me overcome this kind of obstacle was kind of like thinking of it in a way like that this is not a race. You're supposed to take your time, and it'll happen at the time that it's supposed to happen.
Love it. Thank you. All right. Well, we have 3 minutes left. This has been an invigorating conversation. Thank you for sharing so many great nuggets of wisdom. In like 15 seconds each, if you could give teachers, educators, counselors, school leaders in classes today, in schools today, a quick 15-second soundbite of advice to support students that are like you, that are in the high schools that you went to, what would you tell them? Jadisha, what would you tell as piece of advice?
To just support the students in the best way that they can, even students who aren't academically like doing well. I feel like those are students that you should help more, and anybody can succeed if they have the right type of support system and resources.
Love it. Thank you. 15-second soundbite, Jawon. Advice.
Yeah, definitely pass the baton, right? So don't just tell the student, go to career services to figure it out. Why is he going or she going to career services? And definitely make sure that they know that they are the tool. My PD often told me, you are me at the end of the day. So she gave me the tools. I'm running with it.
Love it. Ellie, 10 seconds.
Okay. I want to go back to what Jawon had said about creating a relationship with your PD. I think that definitely helps out, especially whenever they're for them to check in on you, see how you're doing outside of your school and outside of your work, and because that can actually translate into your work and school life.
Thank you. Robert, last soundbite, and then we have one poll to close us out, so please hold on, folks.
Embrace the seemingly ordinary is one, and then I got 5 seconds left. Unconditional love.
Love it. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. I love it. I love all that you've shared. Thank you for sharing your story. There will be one more poll that you will all see. If you could please fill it out before you exit, that would be amazing feedback for us. Jawon, Jadisha, Ellie, and Robert, I appreciate you giving of your time here today. Thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Please keep in touch, and thank you for sharing with us today.